is housed, okay? And that is incorporated or imported into the EPIC system, and EPIC, oh, thank you. Okay, and then EPIC can, down there, will go, this file right here will go into the EPIC system just like the other information goes into the EPIC system, okay? And then that's how EPIC will do the translation. Okay. So now, what is it that CMT is, or Kaiser Permanente is donating? We'll be donating two forms. One is content, and the other is any enhancements that we do to the IHTSDO workbench. And from the content side, there will be two types. One is the SNOMED CT extensions, which is the KP modeled concepts. That includes, of course, the SNOMED's core structure, the FSN's preferred name, as well as the synonyms if they apply, and the defining relationships. And the other type of content is called the CMT derivative. And this is anything that we've added to the SNOMED CT or non-SNOMED CT terminology. And that would include the KP descriptions that we've added to support the clinicians as well as the patients, as well as the mappings that we've done to ICD-10 or ICD-9 or CPT-4 and LOINC and so on. Okay. And from the tool side, any enhancements we've done to the workbench, and that may include the enhancements that we will do to incorporate or enhance the collaborative editing workflow. Okay. Potentially might include any enhancements we do to the core search capability, or some things like that, as well as any enhancements we do in order to meet the KP operations, such as extracting EPIC load files. So now, why are we donating? KP have considered CMT an intellectual property for a very long time. However, I think we're all facing the challenge of terminology development. It is a lifelong commitment, and it doesn't come cheap. And it's becoming more and more difficult to find qualified terminologists. So by donating the enhancements we make to the workbench as well as to the content itself, we're hoping that we can accelerate the growth of distributed international network of terminology developers who will work together to ensure that SNOMED CT and other standard terminologies are more quickly updated and enriched or enhanced with clinician and patient-facing terminology. And with this network effect, the more the contributors, the more each individual contributors will benefit. We also hope that with this collaborative approach, okay, we can actually enhance the usability of CMT. So there is some selfish perspective here too. And over time, this distributed and collaborative approach will reduce the level of terminology development required by any single institution, vendor, or even a country. And for those folks who do not participate in the actual development of the terminology, and not all organizations have to, they can use the content to accelerate the adoption of SNOMED CT and other standard terminologies and lower the barrier of entry in order to meet the meaningful use standards. There are three key problems in semantic operability of terminology sets in healthcare today. And one is coherence and coordination of provider-based terminology, and there are many out there. And number two is coherence and coordination of consumer-based terminologies, and there are also many out there. And lastly, maybe most importantly, the coherence and coordination of provider-based terminologies to the consumer-based terminologies. We believe that the challenge of number 3, if we don't address it quickly, will actually cause some problems in achieving the consumer-directed healthcare in the future. Well, how are the CMT donations going to manifest? First, KP will send our content or the enhancements to Workbench to IHTSDO and NLM at the same time. And we'll provide it in 2 formats for the content, as a spreadsheet and as RF1 to begin with, and maybe later in RF2. And we've added 2 description types in RF1 to represent the KP-specific clinician display name and the patient display name. We're also including the cross-map tables to include the KP-specific ICD-9-CM and ICD-10-CM mappings, which is a bit different than the IHTSDO's SNOMED CT to ICD-9 mapping, and perhaps different than what NLM will provide later with the ICD-10 to SNOMED CT mappings. Ours is a direct one-to-one mapping and not a rule-based mapping. Okay. And then IHTSDO will first evaluate for international fit. Okay. And then anything that's rejected by IHTSDO, US, NLM will evaluate it for the US fit. And for the public, content will be available in 3 ways. Okay. One is via the NLM's UTS download site that Vivian referred to earlier. And it'll make available whatever format that Kaiser Permanente donates in. So if it is a spreadsheet, spreadsheet will be there. If it's RF1, RF1 will be there. And of course, for the CMT derivatives that are non-SNOMED CT, then the only format will be spreadsheet. And anything that gets accepted by IHTSDO will, of course, make its way as part of the international SNOMED CT release. And anything that gets accepted by the US will make its way as part of the US SNOMED CT extension release. And the tools, any enhancements that are international fit will become part of the future IHTSDO Workbench release. And any enhancements that may be US fit may be released as US versions of the Workbench. And the details of this is still pending. Okay, now let's talk about when. When are this going to be available? First, we will deliver content and the tool separately. Content will be delivered every 2 to 3 months. And I think the first one will probably come sometime in February. First, we'll focus on the problem list subsets. And of course, that includes the SNOMED CT extensions that KP models, the descriptions that KP adds, as well as the mappings that KP provides. We'll first deliver the top 2,500 most frequently used problem terms within Kaiser Permanente, and then we'll deliver the problem list subsets by specialty. And the first specialty will be cardiology, and then mental health, neurology, musculoskeletal, and so on until we complete the specialist domains, including the ICD-10-CM mappings. We also will deliver the common procedure subsets, and again it'll include the SNOMED CT extensions that we model, as well as the KP-specific clinician-friendly or patient-friendly descriptions. And for procedures, it'll include the CPT-4 or HCPCS-2 mappings. We'll include the common lab procedures, radiology procedures, cardiology procedures, as well as immunizations. And we'll also provide other subsets, such as the vaccines administered in which case it'll include the SNOMED CT mappings as well as the CVX code mappings, and as well as the result components, and of course in that case it'll have mappings to LOINC. Okay. And we will provide other subsets as well as we find the usefulness within Kaiser Permanente, and if we feel those are also useful for either international or US realm, then we'll deliver those content as well. Okay, and lastly for the workbench, the tool enhancements will be delivered every 6 months, and the first delivery to begin sometime in June of this year, with the last delivery in about 2014. Okay folks, that concludes my presentation. I hope I answered some of your questions about, who, what, when, where, and why of CMT donation. Thank you.